I don't know the lengths some people will go to launch an appeal for a hairdresser. Honestly, it's an extraordinary time requiring extraordinary measures. Welcome to the Sheffield Live TV chat show, your regular Thursday night date. We've missed a couple of weeks for perhaps understandable reasons. I hope everybody out there is as well as can be expected. Extraordinary times, extraordinary measures. Somehow we bring you a show this week and hopefully for several weeks thereafter. And the real hero of it is a guy that you won't see on screen. He's the production manager of Sheffield Live TV, Gregg, who somehow brought this together, meaning that I, from the comfort of my sofa here at home, can introduce your guests on this rather special show, who are Carla Ward, the manager. Hi, Carla, the manager of Sheffield United's women's team. Now, we treasure good news at the moment, particularly, so there's some good news regarding Carla that we'll discuss on the show. Toby Perkins MP, who's been on the show, hi Toby, in rather more traditional times. There's some quite weighty matters for Toby and his colleagues in the House, even though the House is in recess. Debate at the moment, not least about football. And talking football, a bit of light relief. And light relief, especially for Sheffield Wednesday supporters. It's been worse than this, you know, far, far, far worse. John Dyson, the author of a new book, hi John, Our Lowest Ebb, will be joining us, times that actually I remember back in the 1970s. Last but not least, a return to the show for our old mate, James Gregg. James, good to see you, and I hope you're well too. How's life treating you?
All good, yeah, slightly strange as it is for everybody, but still working because, bizarrely, Alan, I'm actually on the key workers list, which is the first time I've ever been told that in my entire life. Yeah, so good to be busy working.
Yeah, so you're still presenting sports bulletins on the BBC network from Salford?
Yeah, Salford. I'm actually down in London this week doing the BBC World Service as well, so it's slightly strange sort of walking through Oxford Circus at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and there being absolutely nobody around. It's the first time I've experienced that, but yeah, it's good to be busy, good to be working.
Weird times, yeah, good to be busy. That's the reason I'm doing this. Carla, from your home there, Sheffield United women's manager, you had a recent addition to your family. You've got a daughter who's, 10 months old?
10 months now, yeah.
Yeah.
She's. I was saying just before we come on, actually, she's not crawling, but she's standing up, and you put a ball in front of her, and she's got a wand of a left foot already. So that's pleasing.
There's a future recruit for you, and if there is an upside to this, I dare say that you're able to see her spend far more time with her than you would have done ordinarily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people have been ringing me saying, how are you finding it? And obviously football management is around the clock, and I probably come home for a couple of hours every day, normally in a day-to-day working. But now it's just been unbelievable being at home, and it's weird to say it, but I've actually enjoyed every minute of it in this last couple of weeks because obviously I don't miss the little moments. I mean, she stood up for the first time yesterday, so I wouldn't have seen that if we were in football. I would have probably been at the academy. So, no, it's certainly got its rewards.
Yeah, that's pretty early. So, Toby Perkins, what strange times for you. You're kind of at the epicentre of it as well. Yourself and your political colleagues. Boris Johnson is suffering from coronavirus. One or two other high-ranking people are. How is life with you at the moment?
Well, I think from the perspective of the office, we've never been busier. I mean, it's entirely responding to huge amounts of casework that's coming in. Myself and all of my staff are working from the homes, and I think in these modern times, it's much easier than it would have been in the past for people to work from home and have occasional Zoom meetings where we all catch up, and apart from that, we're able to carry on with the casework side. And every time the government make an announcement on television, I get dozens of people from Chesterfield, businesses from Chesterfield, self-employed people from Chesterfield getting in touch to say, I've just seen the Prime Minister on the telly talking about this new scheme. How do I sign up for it? And obviously, often I've only just watched the same thing on television at the same time. So I think the logistics of some of these schemes lag behind the announcement of them. And so we're spending a lot of time trying to ensure that Chesterfield people, Chesterfield businesses, Chesterfield institutions are able to enact the things that they read about and see about nationally. So it's an incredibly busy time. Parliament isn't sitting, but in terms of the casework side and in terms of contacting ministers, it's incredibly busy, really.
Okay, Toby. Well, this is, of course, a sports show, even though we've got no live sport whatsoever for understandable reasons to talk about. Well,
Still the Belarusian Premier League, Alan. I need to update you on that. People across England are captivated with the Belarusian Premier League, and I watched the Minsk derby. So there's always football out there if you look hard enough.
Capacity crowd, Toby, for that one, wasn't it? Packed stadium. It looked like a good game, and the underdogs won, didn't they? It was FC Minsk.
Indeed, 2-1, I can inform you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I think everybody in the UK who likes a bet on a Saturday, who's trying to get that fix, is going to have a favourite team in Belarus, aren't they, by the end of all this, I think. And they're only 2 games into the season as well, bizarrely. So they're starting at just the right time, really, for this to go on, as long as their league does continue. Provided everyone's safe, I think it'd be really good to at least have some football to follow, wouldn't it?
That's all we've got at the moment, isn't it? Yeah.
And Football Manager. Everybody bar me is on Football Manager. I'm about the only one who's not addicted to it. Let me bring in John Dyson. Obviously, even without the virus, it's been a pretty concerning time for Sheffield Wednesday. But you've been trying to put it into perspective. The virus has affected you in the sense that your book has been delayed. It's due to come out this summer. But tell us about Our Lowest Ebb. I think that's the title of your book.
Yeah, it will be, Alan. It covers the years 73 to 76, where, ironically enough, a previous virus kicked off some trouble at Sheffield Wednesday. Lots of players got ill, and that led to Derek Dooley losing his job, unfortunately, sadly around Christmas. And the club continued to decline. They employed Steve Burtonshaw as manager with a great reputation. Came up from the south, from previously being at Arsenal and QPR, but it just didn't work for him. No. And the team struggled that season, 73-74. Continued to struggle the following year, and ironically enough, I suppose it's 45 years today since they were relegated for the first ever time to Division 3.
Yeah, so there you are.
Carries on, of course. Go on. Yeah, a little bit of perspective. Carries on, of course. The following season, still to fall. Len Ashurst takes over, and the very lowest ebb, they finished 1 place above relegation to Division 4.
I remember being at the game against Southend and commentating on the goals that night. Mick Prendergast and Eric Potts scored goals that kept Sheffield Wednesday in the third tier, the third division, as it was there.
Right.
Toby, football generally, how important is it? How do you quantify? I mean, we're all steeped in the game, none more so than you, well-known Blade supporter, and obviously your local interests of Chesterfield. How do we place football at the moment in terms of life priorities?
Well, I mean, clearly, nothing takes the place of keeping safe at this moment in time. But I think football does need to be recognised as both an incredibly important economic contributor in the UK, and also an incredibly important cultural contribution that Britain makes to the world. I mean, if you look at Britain's greatest exports, much of them are now cultural, whether it be our football Premier League watched around the world, whether it be our musicians. A lot of Britain's influence in the world is around sport and cultural contributions. And so I think as quickly as we can, it is important. And, I think the government have been at pains to say this is both a medical and an economic crisis. and football itself will go into crisis if, for too long, it's unable to have a product. And the finances of football are precarious anyway. If you were to have several months of no football, if you were to have the future league, the operation of leagues in the future being bogged down by endless court cases because there were disputes about how the last season finished, then the whole future of football and certainly football clubs is incredibly precarious. And we've seen the decisions that have been made at the lower sort of leagues of non-league football to cancel that, understandably at higher levels because of the amount of money involved. No sort of rush decisions have been made, but there's no easy way out of this, and it's going to be incredibly difficult to get beyond this. But I think you just look on Twitter and you any social media, you can see the desperation that's still out there for people to talk about football in the past, but also to see it resume. And so, I don't envy those in the Premier League or the FA left with these decisions, but it's going to be incredibly difficult one way or another.
It's important, isn't it, for the morale of the nation, apart from anything else, and you can see that sagging in the absence of football. How are you surviving it, Carla? Because obviously it's pretty much your life as well, and it's not only the Sheffield United men's team that have had a tremendous season, truncated, but you as well. I think you're second in the table when the stoppage came.
Yeah, it couldn't have come at a worse time for me, because I kept reiterating to the group that although Villa were 6 points ahead, Villa have got some really tough games in the running. Leicester have come into some unbelievable form. They've recruited well in January, so unbeaten. Leicester were going to host Villa literally a couple of weeks ago now, but a couple of weeks on from when we stopped. They also had to go to Durham, which is not an easy place to go, as we know. So it was a frustrating time, really, because I felt that there was a slip coming from Villa. I just really hope that they can resume it and play the final 6 games. Sadly, as you can imagine, it's only ourselves and Villa that are pushing for the league to finish. But I think hopefully the right decisions will be made. But like Toby said, I certainly don't envy the decision makers at this time.
It just strikes me that, Carla.
Great news. Sorry, James. You were saying.
It just strikes me that when you've already had a lot of games played, we've had the vast majority of a season, 90% of a season really across English football and the women's leagues and the men's leagues. I don't understand, because football will start again. So I don't understand why they can't just finish the leagues off. I can't believe there's even talk of scrapping this season. It's bizarre. Obviously, it suits some parties very well, but I can't get my head around it.
I think the biggest problem they've got is not only is the Euros now moved, but the Olympics is moved, and obviously you've got the Women's Euros as well. So to try and then finish a season, have a short break, go into then another season, then go straight into the Euros or Olympics, then follow into another season, there's an argument around player welfare and players burning out. Now, I can't remember who it was, whether it was Gary Neville, had put something out last week around a football festival to finish the season over the course of a week or two behind closed doors. Now, this is where the men's and women's are very different. For me, make no secret of it, the men's turn over a lot of money. The government probably lose, I think I read something in the region of £1.2 billion every footballing weekend that's lost. The women's doesn't make a massive amount of money, so might they try and push for the Premier League to be finished and maybe not so much the Women's Premier League, the Women's Championship? I can see that potentially happening. Not what we want, but you can certainly see why they're going to try and push to get the Premier League finished.
Toby, what does Toby Perkins, the football fan, want to happen?
Well, I think that I want the season to finish. I think it's imperative that it does. I think that it may well have to take place over the, in a month or two's time. I think it probably is unlikely to see how that can take place in packed stadiums. So some kind of behind closed doors, I think is likely. But I think that at some level or other, you need to try and finish this season. Now, it has knock-on consequences the later this goes on, because the next season's European tournament should be starting in mid to late July. We are conscious of the English clubs entering into Europe in sort of August. But some of the smaller nations are entering the early rounds of the Champions League and the Europa League, from late July. And so all of this is going to get pushed back. I think next season would have to get pushed back. I think that playing 2 games a week or 3, playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday for the rest of the season isn't a problem. I think that, in terms of player welfare, the Premier League clubs have got 25 player squads. It's up to them to decide whether their players are fit to play, or whether they play 1-11 on the Saturday, a different one on the Tuesday. So it's up to the clubs to manage that player welfare part. And if it means that they've got basically a different 11 out on the Tuesday to the Saturday, well, all the clubs are in the same position in terms of that. So I think that side of it's manageable, and it's up to them to manage the isolation. I mean, it doesn't seem to me impossible that players can't literally turn up changed, arrive separately, go out onto the pitch, and manage their workplace in the same way that others do. Now, of course, you can't say we need 6 feet of isolation at corners and things like that. So there is, of course, still going to be some risks taken. But there's all kinds of people in all kinds of working environments taking risks. And there are, the government's advice in terms of work is that they actually want businesses to carry on with people working from home where possible, and introducing social isolation where possible. So I think we need to get past the peak of this crisis. But I think, maybe 8 weeks, 7-8 weeks from now, there might be an opportunity. You have to, be guided by the medical advice, but there might be an opportunity for football to recommence, to probably finish this season, maybe over the course of late June through July, and start the next one in maybe middle of September. That would be what my hope might be. But obviously, we would need to be guided by both the medical professionals and what can happen. I think as an absolute worst case scenario, they would need to get clubs to play sort of a similar number of games and maybe finish the season at that point. But I think what you can't do is say the season's never happened. I think that if you're Leeds, if you're Liverpool, particularly those clubs coming up from the Championship, that invested many millions in getting to this stage. I think to say to them this season never happened, start all over again, you're just going to get whacked straight into a court case that will maybe delay future seasons too. So I think some way they need to come to a conclusion about what happened this season. And as I say, I hope that reasonable social distancing can be put in place to enable football to take place.
Okay, we'll perhaps touch on that again in part 2. We're coming towards the close of part 1. Also in part 2, we'll formally congratulate Carla on the award of her latest top coaching badge, a UEFA A licence holder now. And I know from talking to many other coaches what hard work that is. And John Dyson will tell us about his book. But just to close part 1, John, what's that shirt all about? Let's have a closer look at it. Yeah.
I've come as Gary Medine today, Alan. Sheffield Wednesday 2012 promotion season. I'm not sure if I wear it quite as well as Gary Medine might have done, or some of that squad, but a particular favourite season of mine.
2012 promotion, yeah?
2012 promotion season, yeah.
When they picked Sheffield United, no less, it reminds me horribly of Chris O'Grady, that that shirt, I'm afraid.
That's it.
Scoring
Jose Semedo, Chris O'Grady.
Yeah, well, yeah, Semedo as well, of course. Yeah, friend of the show, Alan, of course.
Well, he is. Jose's appeared a couple of times. Really lovely character. There was a threat, Mr. Gregg, that you were going to wear your Blade shirt today.
Absolutely not. Professionalism at its finest, Alan. That was only for
I
the
thought
tech. I didn't have the bottle for it.
I thought Toby would, because there was a time when you did appear in our studio, didn't you, Toby, with a Blade shirt on? I'm fairly sure of that.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I don't know how much you wanted to be talking about Chesterfield and what's happening there, and so I thought I'd retain the clothes that I got up in. So
I'm glad
stay clear of it.
Blue is the colour. You're wearing the right colour. I'm wearing the right colour for the spy rights. Mine's a bit deep, but in part two we will talk about that, because Chesterfield were on the brink of completing a takeover, much needed. When this health crisis escalated, and Toby, being the town's MP, will be able to fill us in a little bit more on that, plus more on Sheffield United women. James Gregg, not a roundup this week, something totally different, and we'll rejoin Carla Ward as well in around 5 minutes from now. Hope you can join us then.